Would you like to hear Breaking North ad-free? Become a patron today for bonus interviews, giveaways, and much more. Support spreading the word of your favorite creators. Head over to patreon.com/breakingnorth. There is not a person out there that wouldn't like to learn to play the drums. Learn to play the drums from a working professional over Zoom. It's never been easier to book an affordable lesson than going to zendrummond.com. From seasoned professionals to those who haven't made the leap to buying their first kit. Learn to play your favorite music. Head on over to zendrummond.com to book a free consultation and 2 discounted intro lessons. Life is a hell of a lot more fun when you play some drums. So I am here with Courtney Scruggs. Am I saying that right? Scruggs?
Yeah.
Yes, got it.
Oh, so many nicknames as a kid.
Yeah.
Scrooge.
Scruggs. I was like, nothing's coming to mind right now. I wasn't one of those people that usually made fun of people, so
yeah.
nothing clever came to mind.
I was never the one to make fun of people.
Yeah.
I was on the receiving end of that conversation.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I mean, growing up with the name Zen.
Yep.
I would just got the name hippie. And I was like, I had long hair at the time too. I was like, I get it. That's fine. It's whatever. So you're a metalsmith, foundry worker, sculptor, painter, and jeweler. And there's actually more, right? Do you also do some other stuff? That's a lot though.
Yeah. I have a hobby management problem.
A hobby management problem. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess what did you start with?
I started just with pencil, really. I mean, drawing was just kind of my go-to early on. And the more I got into that, the more I got pushed into other things. I've actually recently found a sculpture piece that I didn't realize / remember that I made from middle school before I even considered myself an artist or going into that field. I mean, I think when you're in middle school, you don't really know what's going on. You're just along for the ride.
What was it?
It was I was a group dancing. So I was on a dance team. We went to nationals and whatever. But I had taken this art class and made essentially a dude on one hand breakdancing, and it was paint splatter all over it and stuff, and it just was really bad. But
what was it made out of?
It was paper mache.
Oh.
Yeah. But I was oh man, I was sculpting a lot earlier than I thought I was. So that was really interesting, because in my evolution, my head, I didn't start sculpting until my last year of college. And that's just fundamentally not true. So
yeah.
It's really interesting.
How'd you find this? Where did it come from? How did it pop back up in your life?
Your parents get tired of housing your things and they start throwing stuff at you. That's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, they're can you just take your shit?
Yep. Get your shit and get out.
Yeah. Did you grow up in Santa Cruz?
I actually, funny enough, just like a lot of other people on your podcast, was born in San Diego.
Oh, well, same.
And I was listening to a couple of episodes and I was like, oh, another San Diego. I was, oh, okay.
I didn't mean to do that either.
I know, it's hilarious. But yeah, so I was born in San Diego and then spent actually my formative years in San Jose. And then when I turned 16, 15 and a half, I got my permit. May or may not have driven with the permit to Santa Cruz every day. Couldn't keep me out of Santa Cruz. So I ended up moving here for my last 2 years of college and going to UCSC and graduating with a bachelor's in fine art.
Wow. And did you know you were going to get into sculpting and all that?
No.
What was the original intention?
Well, I kind of glazed over. I went back to San Diego for 2 years.
Okay.
And went to Mesa College and knew I wanted to do art and got really into painting and printmaking. essentially like intaglio printmaking, which is a either copper or zinc plate. I think it's zinc. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I got really into that art form, ended up transferring up to UCSC because they have such a prolific print department. And it's just like this beautiful studio, and it's huge, and they have so many more resources than Mesa College did. And so I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And I got to UCSC, and I went to, get on the computer and get into my classes, and they're full. Okay, well, I'll try again next quarter. They're full. Okay, well, I'll try again next quarter. They're full. And I couldn't take any print classes. I took one screen printing class that I ended up really not enjoying. I was very, very, very into the intaglio thing. And I took another intaglio class.
What does intaglio make? Like what? I get it's a print, but
they're metal prints, which is kind of maybe where the transition is there to now I am primarily a metalsmith. But it's essentially a metal plate that you etch in acid, and then you rub pigment into the recesses where the acid etched the plate, and then it prints on a piece of paper. Oh. That's like the really, really, really short version of that.
Okay.
But so I just love that process. I really liked kind of the process of it all. If there's one thing that I really enjoy about artwork, it's getting my hands dirty and really like taking the time to make something beautiful. And I like when a thing takes longer than it should for some reason. Maybe I'm just, a glutton for punishment, but that's just generally all of the art forms that I love the most are the most process oriented, like time consuming things you could possibly do.
Or they can really burn the shit out of your hands.
Yes.
That's part of it as well.
Yeah, a little danger,
Yeah, I want to start. I think I was saying something else, but I want to start here.
Okay.
Scylla and Charybdis.
Yes.
I saw like 3 different ways to say this.
Yes.
And on YouTube, and I was like, I'm just gonna give it a go.
It's so funny.
Tell me about the story of that.
Scylla and Charybdis.
Thank you.
Yes.
Scylla. Scylla.
Yeah, there's 1,000 different ways to pronounce it. There are 1,000 different versions of the same story. Mm-hmm. But essentially, Scylla is the, like personification of hell hath no fury like a woman's scorn. And she was cursed by another god, Greek mythology. Everything's all messed up.
One of those
the
gods.
woman's always the bad guy,
mm-hmm.
or the beautiful one, and that's the extent of their character development. Yeah. So it actually started as a deep delve for me into a little more morbid, a little more essentially what happens to our bodies when we die, and how we put them in a little box and we don't let anything touch them, and it's sacred, instead of allowing nature and other beings feed off of our decay. We like selfishly box it. We don't let anything touch it. And that's kind of actually where my mind was when I first started that piece. And then my let's just say he's my cousin, because family trees, but my cousin Philip actually said, oh, well, you should look into the story of Scylla, and I took a deep dive into that whole realm, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. And it's now a little bit, for me in my brain, a little bit more of like a narrative of
So what did she do? Like, what's the general?
Oh, what's the story?
Yeah, what's the general gist of the story? or what did you take away from it?
Yeah, so one version of this story is that she fell in love with a god, and that god was dating someone else.
As they do.
Uh-huh. And that woman, who is, I think, Charybdis, I could be getting this wrong, but cursed Scylla to go from being this beautiful nymph to being a sea monster. And Charybdis and Scylla sit on alternate sides of the Strait of... Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting what the name is. Anyway, it's this little strait down in, near Sicily in Italy. And they sink ships. And it was a narrative of essentially teaching sailors to not... or to be wary when going through this strait, because essentially there's tons of rocks. And so I thought that was all very interesting, especially I am also a licensed Coast Guard captain, 50-ton vessel, whatever. So I'm very into the nautical themes and the sailing and the, ocean and this, that, and the other. So it all kind of just...
Yeah. So you made a sculpture from this story.
Yeah.
And it's really incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and it has half of a woman's face and half of her face is, I guess, showing her skull.
Yeah.
And then also tentacles all around, and there's flowers involved.
Yes.
And it's very, very intricate.
She's like decomposing essentially, but in a beautiful way, which is what I find fascinating, is that we, stick ourselves in these little boxes when we die, and we don't allow nature to take over the way that we probably should.
I want it's not called a live burial, but it's where they just put you in a bag and then they bury you 6 feet down.
Yep.
I've always wanted that. I'm like, I don't want to.
Don't even put me in a bag, man. Just like throw me in the ground, or in the ocean. Let sharks and whatever feed on me. That sounds great.
That seems maybe more appropriate, but yeah, I think.
Yeah.
It's a good call. Yeah, not that many people consider that. I think, I really don't care what happens to me when I die particularly. I think it's not really up to me.
I don't really think I want to be lit on fire.
That doesn't sound very fun to me either. It doesn't
sound like, not that anything else is enjoyable, and I don't know what happens to us when we die, but being alive, getting lit on fire, having done that to myself, it's not very enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
You've probably done that to yourself more than most people.
Probably more than most people, although not very often.
No.
I burn my fingers and stuff. I barely have any fingerprints left, but
that's cool.
I don't light myself on fire that often. I'm a little more careful than that.
So the whole reason why I wanted to, and just kind of, we were talking about this before, the whole reason why I wanted to have this interview with a metalworker or a metalsmith, which I'm just starting to figure out differences and the nuance to both of those, is my buddy took me to his anvil and his forge, and he had me make a nail. And I was doing so good about not, touching anything, and weren't using gloves or really anything. And then the nail came out of, I'm not sure what it's called, and then it popped on the ground, and I was so stoked after an hour and a half of pounding. I just almost picked it up, and he's like, no. It was great. Yeah,
it doesn't look hot.
No, it doesn't. And then we put it in the water, and it was obviously bubbling. Yeah,
totally.
So yeah, I can imagine it's pretty easy to burn yourself in general.
Yeah.
But you get it.
It's really easy to burn yourself, but after enough years, you kind of either get used to it and just deal with it, or learn to put on a pair of gloves.
So how long have you been doing this? So you have your own studio.
I have my own studio, but it's not the same as where I do the large scale casting. So I work at a foundry part-time, which is where we do bronze and aluminum casting here in Santa Cruz. It's called the Bronze Works. And essentially I work there part-time, and then I have my own studio where I do small metal casting, so jewelry type stuff. And
that's Whatnot Studio.
That's Whatnot Studios. Yes.
Okay.
And so that's where I do all of the finishing work, all my sculpting, everything, and then I take everything to the foundry to have it cast it, because I do everything myself.
Cool. Then who runs that one?
The foundry?
Yeah.
Sean Monahan, and he teaches up at UCSC. He teaches the foundry class and sculpture, and is generally a wonderful human being. It's so funny. when I was in college, I had a job and taught sailing and got my captain's license. And I ended up a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now, kind of giving up sailing to focus on my art full time. And so now I always joke, I'm like, oh yeah, I gave up like the male dominated world of captaining for something way easier, like metal work. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, I don't know.
You're just one of those badasses.
I just don't see
you
it
don't
as
see
a
it like that.
Gender thing.
No.
And it's challenging when other people do.
I think that's the badass part. You're just not seeing it like that. And you're not like, I'm trying to just do this to like show anybody. You're like, fuck it, this is like what I want to do.
This is just what I like doing.
Yeah.
And I don't see why I shouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, and so both of those things are very hands-on. Mm-hmm. So you were into that sort of stuff, and you said you danced before?
Yeah. So I pretty much have been dancing since the age of like, I think 3 or 4. My mom put me in like tap shoes and made me do the little classes and stuff, and then got into competing, and then have done almost every dance style as well as art form. You know, I started in ballet and tap, and then got into jazz and lyrical and hip hop, and then in my adult life I was like, oh well, you know, like for a while there it wasn't cool for an adult to be in hip hop class. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do that's like more quote unquote adulty? And I got really into salsa dancing. And so I did salsa dancing for like 10 years and was on a team for about 2 months, and then realized, oh man, I really, really enjoy doing this when it's for fun and not like strict, like it's like a job again. And it's like, okay, I'm going to peel it back and kind of keep it as a fun thing.
Yeah, focus on what you actually, I don't know, something that doesn't seem like a job. So I'm assuming you don't really see metalworking as so much of a job, but it is.
It is.
It ebbs and flows. What does it feel like for you?
Yeah, it really depends, because the process is so lengthy. There are definitely parts that feel like a job, and then there are parts that feel like I'm back in middle school in the art class and just sculpting away.
How much a percentage of your time is probably like spent kind of just creating, messing around, kind of, or like you get the ideas for these sculptures? Because I'm sure nobody really necessarily said do these ones that are for sale on your site.
No, yeah.
So how much is a percentage of that, and then how much is like the jewelry and commissions? And
oof, this is the part where the podcast gets really dark and horrible, because the percentage of the creative time that I have is probably like 10% in comparison to all the extras that go into it, and the, you know, promotional stuff and marketing and business and taxes and this and that, and, you know, all the minutia that goes into running a small business, which is essentially what an artist is their own tiny little self-made small business. And so I would love to be doing more of the creative side of things. And that is definitely a goal for the next year for me personally. But yeah, oof.
Hey, it's good for people to hear, and honestly, 10% is better than some other people I've interviewed for this. So
it's true.
It's part of how it goes, and I think at some point, you know, either you retire or you just take a break and do something else for a little while, and it can just be a hobby again.
Yeah, that is one thing. Like, I am never working on less than probably like 10 different projects at the same time.
Damn.
So in different parts of the process. So there's like the sculpting, then the molding, then the wax casting, and then I'm not going to get too far into this rabbit hole of awfulness of trying to explain the casting process, because it's going to be really boring and I'm going to lose everybody.
I was going to ask like very specific questions.
No.
I was like, for an audio format, it's probably not going to...
Oh man, unless you want to put everybody to sleep, it's like not great.
I found it really interesting.
It's more of
it looks so cool too.
Like, it'd be a really great video.
Yeah.
Which is actually like, I've been doing this collaboration with Alex over the last however many months now.
I definitely want to talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, that will be really fun because it's a video format, and it will hopefully be edited down into a very short little clip, and it'll like be nice, tied in a cute little bow, and like be really great and succinct, and you can cut out all the boring things, or like it'll turn a part of the process that normally takes 8 hours into a 3-second clip, which is kind of breaks my soul a little bit, but is also just
It's the way of the world. Yeah.
way better for explaining things.
Let's go into that. So Alex Wong, Upcycled Skate Art.
Yeah.
Interviewed him. That was super cool. And he was gushing about your work.
Oh.
Like the 2 times I talked to him, he's like, you need to have Courtney on. Like that's who you need to have on. I was like, okay. All right.
Well, it takes good people to know good people.
Yeah. So how'd you guys first meet?
Actually, this is a hilarious story.
I don't think he actually told me, so.
No? So he was in the welding shop and ran into my partner, Matt Spivak, who is a metal fabricator, and was explaining something he was trying to do to the guy in the welding shop, and seemed kind of artsy, and my partner Matt is let's just say very outgoing and chatty, and he was like, hey, what are you trying to do? And he's like, oh, I'm trying to do this thing. And oh, my girlfriend casts metal. You should talk to her. Here's her name and contact information and blah, blah, blah. And you should come by the shop sometime. And here's, like, we should have a beer. And so I think, if I remember this correctly, he actually invited Alex back to his shop, like, directly after meeting him. They hung out. He got a hold of me. And I came by his studio off 17th to essentially like check out what he was doing, and we started getting into the casting conversation, and I was like, oh, well, if you're gonna do this, then you gotta do this and this, and if you're gonna do this, you might as well do this, and and so on and so forth. And then we ended up seeing each other again at the Capitola Art and Wine Festival because we both had booths there, and that night he texted me and he was like, do you want to collaborate? I've got this idea, but I feel like you're going to be way, like, more tech savvy about, like, the casting part, and it'd just be really fun to work together. And so that's the long and short of the whole thing, and I'm just so grateful that Matt talked to him that day, because he's just such a gem of a human.
Yeah, he's very approachable, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, his shop is so cool.
Yeah, and he's just the right amount of creative and professional. And it's so hard to come by in this town sometimes.
I agree. Yeah, because he started off he was kind of in the tech world a little bit. Mm-hmm. Or he was kind of trying to get into basically non-artistic related stuff.
Yeah, well.
And so that project, we could talk about it a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Before the 3-second video comes out.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be basically trucks, like skateboard trucks, turned into some sort of skeleton that, as far as...
Yes. So what we're going to do is we're taking the hangers and creating a spinal column out of them, and they're going to come up into this cast aluminum skull. So, you can kind of picture, a spinal column with a skull on top of it. And the skull is going to be cast from the recycled aluminum truck parts. So the whole thing will be essentially an upcycled piece. Hence, Alex and Upcycled.
Wow. Is he applying any of the decks to it, or this is just all gonna be metal?
Yeah, we have like, I think 6 or 7 different renditions of the same piece that we're hoping to do, and
that's cool.
Have some sort of gallery opening type thing.
Yeah. Little wall of spinal columns and
skulls. so we have some wall mounted ones we're trying to do, and some freestanding and some pedestal pieces, and some other little like goodies that I'll leave it up to the imagination and make sure you all come if and when it ever actually happens. But
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's just the process takes a really long time. So
I can imagine.
We're working on it slowly but surely.
That was the thing too when I was talking to him about what's the hardest project, and he's like, dude, this thing has been keeping me up at night. He's like, I don't know. That was a few months ago.
Yeah.
But it was cool to just see him just like, how do I do this? Like, what are we trying to do?
Yeah.
How do you make this look like this? And
yeah, it's gonna be really cool. And it's really fun because I used to have this community of artists down when I lived in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And we would, sit in a friend's garage and just doodle and draw and like put paper up on the wall and be really creative. And it was always fun and energetic, and we all fed off of each other. And I haven't really felt like I've had a community like that until meeting two people. One of which is my best friend, Darcy Shea Bogdan, who's a jeweler and a metalsmith as well, but jewelry. And Alex. And it's just so fun to like have that creative flow and energy and like be talking to somebody and say, oh, da, 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 I have this idea, da, 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 da. And then it's always, oh, that's really cool. But what if, and then like, yeah, da, 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 and it just like explodes into this whole other thing. And I feel like that's how it is when I talk to Alex and when I talk to Darcy, and it's just like, oh my gosh, and that makes me think of this, and what if we did this, and what if this happened? And it's just like, whoa, like your brain just starts exploding with all of these different ideas, and you feed off one another, and it's just really, really refreshing.
Yeah, it's hard to find a little community like that, especially when you're all kind of doing very similar things. I tend to like, because in like the drummer community, we all know each other, like each other and stuff like that, but I wouldn't say all the drummers like go out and drink together.
No.
Unless we're at a show, like playing shows is like we'll talk shop, but it's hard to find those people you really, really vibe with.
Yep.
So
Totally.
Back in San Diego, so I guess what was it like growing up for you? What were your parents like? Like what kind of kid were you?
Oh, great question.
Any of those questions?
Yeah. I like to watch other people make mistakes and then try to avoid them. Like, that's the kind of kid I think I was. Like, I'd watch my brother, like, do BMX stuff and, like, fall, and I'm like, yep, nope, not doing that. You know, I don't know. I like to just watch and then try to repeat and not fail. And failure's always been, like, a really hard thing for me. And it's so big in art. Like, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
That's like the only thing that really happens for a long time.
It's just trial and failure and trial. Okay, well, okay, what did I learn? Okay, now what? Okay, I will learn this from this. Okay, now what? And
so your brother did BMX? Is that just a hobby, or?
It was just a hobby. I mean, he also did hockey and all these other things. But I was really grateful because my parents, like, our house growing up was the fun house. Like, we had a pool and a trampoline, and like my parents kind of just let us do whatever we wanted. And on the other end of that, they also were incredibly adamant about being moral and right and fair and all of these things. And like, I just feel really lucky to have grown up the way that I did with the parents that I did.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And were they supportive of you? I mean, they brought you to dance. Were they always kind of supportive of you? Did they have any ideas of where you were going to take your life or goals for you?
I think they've always been supportive, and like along those same lines of like them, like me being really grateful for them and the way that they were with me growing up. Like, they never treated my brother and I differently. And I think that's why I'm so adamant about doing whatever I want to do, regardless of whether or not it's a male-dominated industry. Is like they never treated us any different because, you know, my brother was a boy and I was a girl. And on the same lines, like, we both were given names that were non-gendered. Courtney and Morgan are both male and female names, which I think is really cool. And so I'm really grateful for that. But I kind of got off topic there. Anyway, I guess that's the whole point, right?
Right.
They just were really good about being supportive, but I think they have been and still are a little hesitant because it's really hard to make a living as an artist.
It is.
It is.
How long have you been
nearly
doing
impossible.
Like, how long have you been, I guess, making a living? Or
I mean, I built my first website in high school, so I've been selling my work since then. And I have had other jobs and whatever, and, you know, done the Santa Cruz 5 jobs and 3 hobbies thing.
I just got have a stack of W-2s over there. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even remember working that job this
I know,
last
right?
year. Yeah.
It's like, okay, well.
Yeah.
Wow, that was this year, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It is the Santa Cruz thing because it's so expensive to live here. And it's such an entrepreneurial, artistic town, or maybe just artistic, and you need to figure out how to make money.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to get into it too far, but
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on that.
Yeah. Well, like what? I can't just not.
Yeah. Oh, God.
You can do a short version, whatever.
Okay, so long story short, I love Santa Cruz for its authenticity and weirdness and all of these things. And it's just really hard watching tech take it over and push all of the creative out. Because that's essentially what they're doing when they're overpaying for homes by 15 to 20%. And it's just really hard for me to watch, especially since I lived in San Jose for 13 years. And it's like, it's these people that like, oh my gosh, I love Santa Cruz because it's weird and it's authentic and like it's artsy and da da da. So I want to go there. I want to live there. And so they go and they buy these houses and they don't even live in them. They're their second houses. And they outbid everyone. And they're essentially driving what they like about Santa Cruz out of Santa Cruz. And it's just so frustrating that they don't even see it. It's like typical engineer brain, like, I love the thing, so I'm going to do the thing. And it's like, oh, you can't see the forest for the trees.
With blinders on, yeah.
So rough.
I agree.
So rough.
Well, they haven't really, this is very generalizing, but they haven't really like put themselves into the community to see how it is changing when nobody can afford to live here.
And then it's like, so they like, it's total tech mentality. It's like, oh, we've created a problem, so let's make a patch to fix the problem. We'll just give them subsidies. And it's like, no human wants to live on subsidies. Like, that's not a very, like, I don't know.
It's not humanizing.
No.
Yeah.
It's
like,
oh,
you can't afford your life.
Give me your charity. It's like, no. Pay money for the thing that you love and don't. Anyway.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not from here, so I also feel like, to some extent,
I'm not from here either.
Yeah. A lot of people are from San Diego, as I've figured out.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people I know are in the artistic community, so
yeah,
it just makes sense like that. So, sailing.
Anyway.
Let's go into sailing, because that is a really cool Santa Cruz thing.
Yes, it is a very cool Santa
what
Cruz
is SC-27?
Santa Cruz 27. It's a 27-foot sailboat built and designed here in Santa Cruz. And it's one of my favorite boats. It's the boat I learned how to sail on. Okay. And I used to do SC-27 nationals almost every year. I started out racing boats. I had a family friend.
That's what that is. Nationals is racing.
Yeah. Because I can't do anything unless I do it 110%. So I go into sailing and I just start racing because why not? Go into dance and I start team. It's like,
so it's a quick way to learn if you're just like, oh, I'm going to start racing. Like,
yeah. So I had a family friend that taught me how to sail, and he essentially said to me, hey, I heard you just moved to Santa Cruz. We have a race this weekend and I'm short on crew. Can you come and fill in? And I was like, I don't know how to sail. And he's like, I thought you went out, because his son lived in San Diego and sailed in San Diego, and I'd gone with him a few times, but the only things he ever taught me about sailing was that it's a myth that the boat runs on wind. It actually runs on alcohol, because that's semi-true in San Diego, because there's hardly any wind there. And then the second thing was that girls are for sitting on the deck and looking pretty, and the boys are the ones that sail.
Jesus.
And he's going to hate me that I said that out loud. But it's true. That's what he told me.
If you say things.
Anyway, so his dad was like, I don't care. I don't care what you don't know. Like, just come out. We'll teach you everything you need to know. And essentially, I came out, and he was like, pull on that let that out, Dad! Just was yelling, and it was just so fun and so energetic and such a awesome team dynamic. And it was the first time in a long time that anyone had ever, treated me equally, which is kind of how I was raised. And it just was so addictive. I don't know. And so I joined their team and sailed with them for, like 7 years or something, and raced, and it was so fun. And then I got so into that I actually was on the docks all the time and got hired by the manager of Chardonnay to start doing charters on Chardonnay. Moved from second mate to first mate to actually managing the boat for a little while, and then eventually got to a point where I just had fallen off the art game and had kind of a come to Jesus moment, and it's like, no, I need to quit this so that I can focus on art full time again, because that's really what I'm passionate about.
Wow. So 7 years before you went to the Chardonnay, which, by the way, is that right?
No, those things overlapped.
Got it.
But yes,
so also
intermingled.
For people that are, I don't know, like my parents, the Chardonnay is the charter boat in Santa Cruz that goes out for 2 hours, right? And they serve booze and food.
Yep.
And it's like a 40 something? No, 50, how big is that boat?
It's a Santa Cruz 70.
Oh.
It was built by Billy Yachts and is the same hull design as that 27. So these boats were made in Santa Cruz. Yes.
I am getting that now. The SC.
Yeah.
That's what it stands for.
And actually, so
that's cool.
So I started on the 27, ended up, working on Chardonnay, which is a Santa Cruz 70, and it's the same hull design as the Merlin, which held the record from for the Transpac for like 22 years, I think. Don't quote me on that, but was revolutionary to boat design. Essentially,
What is the Transpac?
Transpac is a race from mainland to Hawaii, and it takes like a week or two. I mean, that is completely changed now because of this revolutionized hull design, where essentially these guys just ended up getting together and thinking like, well, what if we built sailboats like we built surfboards and made them super ultra light? And everyone in the industry laughed at him and said, no, you can't do that thing. That thing's going to fall apart. It's going to, the second you hit anything in the middle of the ocean, because inevitably you're going to hit something in the middle of the ocean, it's going to fall apart and sink and you're done, Not just done, but dead.
Yeah.
And they did it, and they beat that record by like a substantial amount. And it completely changed the way that the sport of racing and sailing was.
When did that happen around?
Oh boy, you are challenging me with numbers.
Yeah.
Probably 70s, 80s.
Okay. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'm just
60s,
like,
70s, 80s.
Is that like 10 years ago or 4?
No, yeah.
Okay. Around there.
Yeah. And so Chardonnay was hull number 19 of 19. They only have ever made 19 of those sailboats. And it was designed for Chardonnay sailing charters to be a race boat designed for charters. And so it is a race boat that you get to go out on. It's a very unique experience. Like, I sound like I work there still, but it's a really fun boat and a dream to drive.
It's very fun. Mm-hmm. I got to drive it on my birthday.
Oh, really?
That was fun.
Yeah.
Had a good time with that. And sailing has just always been part of your life, and it goes into your art. So what other sort of pieces can you think of, like, off the top of your head that were like nautical themed, or any of these stories that you kind of...
Well, most of them.
Most of them, yeah.
Most of them are ocean inspired. I actually ended up doing a artsy version of a plaque for the yacht club, the Santa Cruz Yacht Club. One of my mentors, who passed a few years ago, Rob Schuyler, got me a commission through the yacht club to make a plaque about all of the boats that were made in Santa Cruz, and it's out in public, so you can go check it out. It's on 4th Street, right above the yacht club. And so that piece was really, really fun to work on with the Altmans. And so that is, you know, that was a really fun experience because it got to merge the two things I love the most, my sailing and my bronze casting. And so that was really
to your
fun.
mentor for kind of getting that together. That's such a cool thing at the place that you worked at.
Yeah.
Rad.
Yeah, it's like definitely near and dear to my heart for sure. And like really grateful to him for being such an incredible person.
Great.
Yeah.
So another piece that comes to mind is the 99% sure this is yours. It's on the wharf.
Oh, so I did not design that, but I did work on it for like over 2 years. So that piece was designed and built by Sean Monahan, who owns the Bronze Works. But I did a lot of the sculpting on that piece. And one of my very first jobs at Bronze Works, when I first started working there, which is actually kind of another funny story, but one of my first jobs was adding barnacles to the feet of that thing. And then over the period of a couple of years, I ended up sculpting the majority of the crab that's on there and helping create the large, like 12-foot span octopus. It was really fun.
Yeah, it's huge. And it's in front of what restaurant? Yeah,
well, it used to be...
Alita's?
Yeah, it's right underneath Alita's. Mm-hmm.
It's so cool to look at. I remember like when I first moved to Santa Cruz, I'm like, look at that thing.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
My brother's a engineer type. My brother's an engineer. My dad's an engineer. My boyfriend's an engineer. I'm just surrounded by them.
Same. That's what
and,
my parents are. Yeah.
And I remember when we finished that thing, I think it was like 2015, I got a call from my brother and he was like, Courtney, that sculpture you did, it's on the front page of Reddit. And I was like, what? What's Reddit? He's like, it's the front page of the internet. It's on the front page of the internet. And he was like freaking out and sending it to me. And it's actually been up on the front page of Reddit a couple times since then. It just keeps like kind of popping up as, like
some cool
shit. Wow, look at this crazy thing somebody designed.
It really is cool.
And Sean is computer averse. So I'm always like, yeah, this was done by Sean Monahan and Bronze Works, blah, 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 like type it out and send it so that everybody knows like who it actually came from. Because the most common thing is like, oh, that plumber's probably so mad. And it's like, no, that's not, no.
Yeah, I love those dumbass comments online.
Yeah, you know.
You have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly.
You didn't seal over anything.
Yep. But it started out much smaller than it actually ended up becoming.
Really?
The piece was supposed to be just like, I don't know.
Like a little octopus.
Like a little, yeah. And it's actually the third octopus fountain that Sean has created. The first two are in his shop in Bronze Works. And they are maybe a foot by 2 feet. And this one was supposed to be just a little bit bigger than that. And it's now like, I think 900 and something pounds. Almost 1,000 pounds. And
what is it like?
Huge. It's like...
What, 6, 8?
Maybe 6 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet.
It's just this sprawling.
Yeah, it's gimangus.
And you made the crabs.
And
some suckers.
Yes, I put all of the suction cups on the large octopus. And I did a lot of the texturing and sculpting. And it was a very fun and arduous endeavor.
Kind of when I'm thinking of your pieces now, it seems... at first glance that you're very, very into the detail work. Mm-hmm. Do you make anything large? Is there something you like more about doing detail versus large scale?
For me, I love when you look at a piece and the design is good enough to where it leads your eye around the piece and you can see it and then walk away and then come back and notice something different. And then walk away and come back and notice something different. And like that to me is my ideal art piece is something that keeps you invested in it. And so most of my pieces start as a larger conceptual design And as it goes, it gets more detail and more detail and more detail and more detail until I literally can't fit anything else on it.
Yeah. Like the first piece we were talking about, Scylla, which I'm going to say Scylla.
Mm-hmm. Scylla.
Scylla. God damn. Like that piece, I've looked at it so many times now as I was preparing for this. And then today was really the first day I was like, there's flowers. And those are big.
There's flowers?
Isn't there?
I don't think there's flowers. But, it's all up to interpretation, too. Like,
I was looking at
a lot of the things that I put on my sculptures are not necessarily real things. I'm, like, really influenced by Ernst Haeckel, if you know who that is.
I do not.
Ernst Haeckel was a scientific illustrator gone rogue. He,
A scientific illustrator gone rogue?
Yeah.
How do you go more rogue than that?
Because he started out drawing scientific illustrations of little tiny, microscopic microorganisms, essentially. And if I remember this story correctly, I've read a bunch of his.
Shell. My bad.
Oh, the kind of nautilus shape. Yeah.
I was wrong. Okay, sorry. The guy's name again.
Anyway, Ernst Haeckel. He's great.
And he was drawing microscopic.
He was doing scientific illustrations, and if I remember the story correctly, his wife passed away tragically. And I think maybe in childbirth or something like that. And he just kind of went nuts. And he made the cognitive decision, like, okay, if this microorganism can exist, then why can't this exist? And he just started drawing out of his imagination instead of drawing what he saw. And the scientific illustration community was like, screw you, you can't do that. And the artist community was like, yes, come to the dark side.
Oh my God.
And so I have like 4 of his books. I've always wanted the big giant hardcover book of his, but oh my God.
Hopefully somebody out there listening will buy you it.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. No, I got the 4 books actually for Christmas from Matt. That was a really, really great gift. So I'm
You're happy.
Satiated. But yeah, just an incredible inspiration to me and my work. And if you look at his scientific illustrations, it will completely click as to like what my pieces look like. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
How do you come across this person?
I learned about Ernst Haeckel. I think I was doing a collaboration in college with one of the grad students, Jean Felice, and I think Jean introduced me to his work. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's, sometimes it's like, it's just the universe brings it to you, and sometimes there's an actual human that...
You hear it a couple times in passing, and then all of a sudden you finally find it.
And it could very well have been that I was, like, making these weird little diatoms or something, and he was like, have you ever seen Ernst Haeckel? Chicken or the egg situation, I'm not sure.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic, so what other sorts of inspirations or, like, kind of... Do you read a lot, watch a lot of movies? Is there something that kind of more or less goes in? I'm sure you get inspiration from everywhere.
I would love to read more. I watch a fair amount of, garbage TV. Well, not really. I mean, so if you see my work, you can tell that my brain is moving 1,000 miles a minute. And so I like to put things on in the background. My mom always did this growing up. She would like have a TV show on and never watch it. It's like, Mom, why are you doing this? It's just like background noise. And I think she grew up in a large family. She was one of 11 kids. And so I think having sound was just very comforting to her. And so she would just put TV on and like not ever actually watch it. And so now I do that all the time. Like I'll have a show running in the background, but be so focused on my sculpture that it's like somebody asks me what's going on in the show, and I don't know,
just there.
So I like finding like a series that's like 14 seasons long and just putting it on and subliminal.
Yeah, just keep it going. So I guess I don't know, anything come to mind, or like I guess
As far as inspiration?
Yeah, because I guess it's so nautical themed and stuff like that. Do you like study with anybody? Is there any? Well, I guess not study with anybody. Is there something you're specifically thinking of when you're kind of coming up with the pieces, or is it just things that come to your head?
Let's see. That's a good question. I'm very influenced by obviously like the ocean and my community and sometimes very morbid things, and I think it just kind of comes to me.
Where did that come from?
The morbid stuff?
The morbidity, yeah. Because you seem like a generally positive person. It doesn't. There's of course a yin and yang too, but
yeah, I don't think that they're not synonymous. You know, I think you can have a morbid sensibility and still be a positive person. I think it's impossible to know what happens when we die, and so I find that endlessly creative. Like the possibilities are just, you know, it could be this or it could be that, and thinking about that is both terrifying and wonderful all at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe that's where it stems from, is just that because we don't know, it's interesting to me.
So you're kind of just dealing with that in its own way and through your art. And...
I like unanswerable questions.
Yeah. I always thought the stories of people who like have died. Like there's a kayaker.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like one show on Netflix. I watched the first episode. So cool. It was about like people who died, came back. Mm-hmm. Second episode was terrible, so I stopped watching. But first one was like a kayaker who was in water for like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And everything is just like, they're like, yes, totally bliss. Like I like saw everything, talked through everything, and
yeah,
it's pretty endlessly cool topic to think about. Yeah.
So that's part of, you know, I mean, obviously with Scylla, like it's that mixed with the ocean, mixed with, you know, my fascination of diatoms and, you know, just... And
it's a great story too.
It's a great story. It's like, it's all of it's an amalgamation of so many different things.
Yeah. It almost like kind of seems like you're like living through your art.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. One of my favorite art quotes is, I think it's Pablo Picasso, said, "Art is the lie which enables us to see the truth." It's like...
I like that a lot. It's spot on, especially for what we were just talking about.
No one would decompose that beautifully, but it's fun to think about.
It is fun to think about. Do you have a favorite like painter?
As far as somebody who I know that paints, that I really enjoy her work, Sarah Stieber, do you know her? Mm-hmm. She's from San Diego. I did a show with her at Felix Culpa Gallery or something. Nope, that's here.
Yeah.
What? Dang, I forgot what the gallery was. Anyway, it was like while I was still in college down there.
I'll check out her stuff.
She does these really vibrant portraits, and they're oftentimes like in pools and stuff. They're really cool. And she's just like an endlessly joyous person, and just really incredible. So I like to try to be inspired by people that are still with us.
I do too.
Yeah.
I am very much about that.
And I like to try to celebrate people that are still with us, because there's no point in paying $3 billion for a painting great-grandchildren of that person gets to enjoy. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, they didn't paint that, so...
Yeah, I went to a Van Gogh exhibit in New York. We got in for free. It was really cool. But they were talking about showing how much all these pieces went for, and then it was like adding it up, and I was like, okay, just Van Gogh himself has made people like billions and billions of dollars, like not an exaggeration, just these estates and stuff like that. Oh, it's a weird thought.
Yes. Meanwhile, people look at, you know, my work and, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's so much. Or, you know, like going to a music show and bitching about a $10 cover. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, just makes you want to shake people.
Yeah, and then...
It's like...
Yeah, then as soon as the musician dies, and everybody just starts giving a shit. Or
Put your money where your mouth is.
yeah, I completely agree. And it's just the weirdest thing when people like ask for drum lessons and stuff like that, and I tell them my prices, which are pretty much like everybody else's, and they're like, "Oh my god."
I've definitely taken the yes, and my rate is.
The start of the conversation to that just gets shorter and shorter as you kind of stop giving so much of a shit.
Well, and the more that you're confronted with the price gouging and whatever, it's really easy to me now to just, yep, this is my rate. Like, if you don't like that, somebody else is going to pay it. So.
Just because there's like artists and creators and stuff that listen to this, I think there is a kind of interesting thing about the psychological aspects of undercharging your prices. Have you heard about that? It's like it's a thing.
No.
It's
what?
literally.
Yes, please tell me.
So if you're looking for certain kinds of customers that don't necessarily complain, or are just better customers and seem happier, and they just trust you with the work, usually you only really get those people if you're charging like mid-level, upper echelon prices. And the less you charge people in general, the more those sort of people will ask of you, because they assume that you're kind of just doing a bunch of charity.
Yeah.
And there is an aspect to that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying for anybody listening, like, go charge people a bunch of money, but
I'm saying go charge people a bunch of money.
Okay, cool.
Or at least charge what you're worth.
That's
Just
it.
know your worth.
Yeah, exactly. If you
Don't
start
undercharge just because you can. Or because your husband's a doctor, or because you're a trust fund baby. Because what you're doing is you're driving the price of art down for all the people that are trying to make a living doing it.
And it's hard work. It takes
And
a
it's
lot.
hard work. Yeah, it looks fun. But
How often are you in the studio, just out of curiosity, or kind of
every day.
Every day.
Yeah, I'm in a studio every day.
Wow.
I work so much.
I mean, it makes sense. You gotta, if you're gonna do that, you can work a 9 to 5 over the hill, in Silicon Valley. But
there are things that feel like work, and then there are things that don't feel like work, but are work, but they don't feel like work. So it feels like.
And you still get to put something out there in the world that you love and you learned from.
Yep, exactly.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And your work is really incredible.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I've seen the prices that you're asking for stuff, and I'm like, that 100% makes sense. I would never think anything other than that.
Well, thank you. I literally just made a formula, and I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I type in the time it takes to do certain things, and I type in the material cost, and I type in everything, and it all just calculates it for me, and that's the number that pops out, and that's how I charge for things. It is very
I love that.
cut and dry, because at the end of the day, it's work.
Then it's not
art
so
work.
subjective.
It's not art play.
Yeah, exactly. Back to it. By the way, thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been really fun. I have a few more questions. Just kind of want to get into the deeper stuff and then the fun stuff, and then so you talked about community kind of being an aspect of your work. And I guess first would be let's talk about your jewelry a little bit. You say, and I think it was one of your on your websites, you're like, I try to make it accessible to people as a different, I guess, just different to these sculptures that not everybody can have. Yeah, not everybody can afford or wants a $10,000 piece of artwork that sits and collects dust, which is great. That's fine. Like when you say it out loud. I totally understand that, but both ends of that spectrum. And so I started making jewelry as a way to make tiny wearable sculptures that people can, wear around their neck or on their arms. And they are, I would say that they're more accessible. They're not necessarily it's not the cheapest jewelry you're going to find. This isn't Claire's. So you're getting nice jewelry. You're getting nice jewelry. It's sterling or bronze jewelry. And I purposefully don't work in gold unless it's a commission because of that. I try to keep the jewelry cost price low because I want people to be able to
own a tiny little sculpture of mine that, can't afford a big sculpture of mine.
Yeah, and people just want to wear something really cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So how do people find that? How would they kind of reach out for those?
Well, I have a online store. I have Whatnot Studios, and it's spelled what cannot, like a boat knot.
Boat knot.
And yeah, everything is online there. I'm actually upping my prices with all of my jewelry coming up here, I think next month. So
cool. This is going out next week.
Great.
So
great. Well, get while the getting's good, people, because my prices are going up. I recently did a reevaluation of all of my cost of goods and things like that, and websites are expensive, and
they are.
Everything has
expensive.
A cost.
Yeah.
And inflation has risen over 10% in the last year alone. So,
and
you're going to see that everywhere. Yeah, fuck the supply chain.
The boats, yeah.
It's true. But anyway, so I actually recently just sent a newsletter out. I have a newsletter. I send out one email a month. It's actually the best way to keep in contact with me and figure out what I'm doing. So, and there's a sign up for that on whatnotstudios.com. But I sent out a newsletter at the beginning of this month, beginning of February, saying like I'm giving everyone a chance that has been looking at my work for the last 10 years to buy stuff before my prices go up, because I think that is the most honorable thing, and I like transparency. So
yeah. The support in the community, I kind of wanted to go quickly into just like commissions, what the community means to you, how you give back.
Yeah, community is everything to me. I think, growing up with my mom being so immersed in our little community when I was a kid, and like I lived on a cul-de-sac growing up, and my mom used to throw like these fat parties like once a year and like shut down the whole block, and like just coming together and realizing like just we're all in this together is really important to me, and like definitely a huge...
Your parents sound fun.
They're really cool.
Yeah.
My dad's coming up here on Tuesday. I'm giving a talk at 780 Valencia, which is a gallery I have Scylla in right now.
Oh.
And it's his birthday that I'm giving the talk on. He's like, I'm coming up. So I'm like really excited to see him. My parents are great.
When is that?
This
is that, like,
Tuesday.
open to the public?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. It's just like a short talk. There's a bunch of other artists also talking about their work. Okay. Backtrack. I'm in a show up in San Francisco, 780 Valencia, with I think there's like upwards of 50 other artists, and all of the work pertains to climate change. And I have Scylla in that show, and I'm giving a talk about how she relates to climate change in that way. Which is a whole other conversation that I will be talking about on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm really excited about that, and it'll be really fun, and it's really fun to hear about other artists' inspirations and things, which you know all that, because
that's why I'm here.
That's why I'm here too.
And so yeah, just going on to, I guess the commissions, like how do you go about this community aspect?
Yeah, so commission work is generally so far
I guess through the city specifically, because people will hit you up randomly through your website.
Yeah, it's always word of mouth. Like the best clients that I get are always somebody told somebody that I could do this thing, and I've gotten connected with so many great people and like great clients through that your best advocates are your friends in your community and people that want you to thrive and want to support you. And so like I have found that the best way to do that is to have a big, awesome community of people. And I don't know, I think if we could all transition from this like mentality of competing into a mentality of all helping each other rise together, then it's going to be just such a better existence.
Yeah. It is a world of abundance, doesn't have to be I'm better than you.
Yep.
That's so cool that you have that relationship with Alex and Darcy too.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense because you guys are similar mediums,
Yep. And the more that they succeed, the more that I succeed, the better off we all are together. So
That's the truth.
yeah.
Deep question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your idea of success? Doesn't have to be deep.
Ooh, my idea of success. Being content with what you have. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
always been like a philosophy. Like you're saying, like I have all these like little one-liner things, and it's really just the things I'm trying to tell myself more than anything. You know, my dad that's gonna be here next week, I'm really excited about. I grew up. Oh, he always had these like little one-liners. You know, like, oh, if you're worried about what people think of you, don't, because they seldom do, and you know, it's none of my business what other people think of me, and all these little like quirky comeback one-liner, you know, just I don't know, life mottos, I guess.
Yeah, little inspiration nuggets.
And I think it's a really good reminder of like who you are, where you came from, and where you're going, and like being able to zoom out is an important way to move forward.
I agree, and I'm very happy that your dad's gonna get to come out.
Yeah,
I
know. I wish my mom was coming too, but
next time.
Life's a bitch, and then you die.
There's another one-liner right there. Any people you'd like to shout out here at the end? Anybody come to mind, or people that anybody who's interested in maybe getting into metal work?
I don't know. If you are interested in getting into metal work, email me. Okay. I don't know. I'm happy to help. Like I said, I want to facilitate people doing what they love and building community and making it about growth and not about like, oh, trade secrets. Yeah. I'm really over that.
Question for myself, where do I learn how to do this? Is there somebody I can go to that like teaches that you recommend?
Cabrillo is such a great resource.
Do they have?
Oh my gosh, yeah. They have metal smithing classes. They have forging. They have jewelry. That's where I learned how to make jewelry, was Cabrillo.
I had no idea. Okay.
And
I was looking up classes and just...
Yeah, well, they have like the semester program where you can take a class over the period of semester, but they also have like all these little workshops and just...
That sounds more like me.
Yeah, there's a lot of great resources there, and there has been a really great community. I'm not entirely sure what it's like anymore, but I know that there's some great people there that are teaching classes.
I still hear great things about Cabrillo, so I'm sure.
Yeah.
Great school.
Totally. Yeah.
Beautiful campus. Yeah, it's got a nice view.
Both of our campuses here in Santa Cruz, Cabrillo and UCSC, are just like the most...
They're all right.
There's a reason they hold their like tours in the springtime. It is just a magical wonderland up there in the spring.
Yeah, you have deer walking around.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Courtney, this has been super fun. Thank you for coming over. And you can find you at Courtney Renee Scruggs on Instagram and whatnotstudios.com, right?
Whatnotstudios.com.
And yeah, I'm very excited for all this. And yeah, I would love to see your work at a gallery. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, and wait.
Yes.
Allie Webster. Because she's
Webster.
the one.
She's the shit. And you guys sailed together.
Yeah, I actually hired her on Chardonnay.
So yeah, our mutual friend, who's our mutual ray of sunshine.
Yes. Personification of sunshine.
She's the best, and she's very, very supportive of me. She's like, I listen to your podcast. Like, I don't even listen to podcasts. I'm just there for it. I'm like, aw.
Yeah.
Thanks, Allie. Great. Yeah, a little shout out to Allie.
Yeah.
We'll send her this bit right now.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
If you enjoyed the show, consider becoming a patron on patreon.com. Early access to episodes, bonus interviews, and much more. Head to patreon.com/breakingnorth. That's patreon.com/breakingnorth. There is not a person out there that wouldn't like to learn to play the drums. Learn to play the drums from a working professional over Zoom. It's never been easier to book an affordable lesson than going to zendrummond.com. From seasoned professionals to those who haven't made the leap to buying their first kit. Learn to play your favorite music. Head on over to zendrummond.com to book a free consultation and 2 discounted intro lessons. Life is a hell of a lot more fun when you play some drums. Would you like to see more stories of artists, creators, and characters that we love? Sign up for the Breaking North newsletter. To sign up, click the link in the show notes. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review if you like the show.